Good day. Today we're going to talk about Noah's Ark and why it will probably never be found. I know there's been a lot of documentaries and whatnot claiming that they found Noah's Ark or looking for Noah's Ark or whatnot, but so far it's been pretty inconclusive. Now, there's a bunch of reasons why you're never going to find Noah's Ark. You may be of the persuasion that Noah's Ark, in fact all of Genesis, is just stolen wholesale from ancient Sumerian fairy tales. If that's your take on it, you're never going to find it because you're never going to look. So for our purposes, we're going to take the biblical story as is, as described, and we're going to assume it's 100% true to the best of their knowledge. And we're going to see whether or not we can find Noah's Ark based on that. Spoiler alert, probably not. Okay? But let's go ahead and look anyway. Couple things to remember. First of all, is that Noah was 500 years old when he started this project. Now, what did he do before that? In those days, he was either a farmer or possibly a goat farmer, or some other variation of that. I mean, there wasn't a lot to do back then that didn't involve farming. So in 500 years, you can bet he knew a few things about farming. Keep that in the back of your thought processor, and we'll get back to it in a minute. Other thing is this. It took him 100 years to build this thing. He wasn't ready to go until he was like 600 years old. So he spent about 100 years getting this thing ready. That means there's a lot of effort getting that material and putting it into the shape of an ark. Okay, so that was a valuable property. Keep that in mind also. Okay, now keep in mind that when the flood finally began, in order to fill the oceans from ocean level all the way up to the top of Mount Everest, or whatever the tallest peak was in those days, would have required so much water that the force of it coming down would have been like multiple fire hoses. It would have blown every forest off the face of the earth and shattered the trees into splinters. Okay, so there's really nothing else to build with. And even if there had been, the chances are when the flood receded, there would have been tangled messes of buried in mud, all this other crap. Floods are messy. Okay, so, and we can assume that Noah pretty much knew what his odds were as he was bouncing around, because he was up there like a year. Okay, after the rains and stuff, he was still up there for a year, and he'd be looking out the window. There's only one, and he'd be noticing that there aren't any trees floating by. Okay. The other thing he'd be doing is thinking, because when you're at sea for like a year, you think about not being at sea for a year. You think about what you're going to do the minute you land and all that sort of thing. So he had a long time to think about this and plan it out. So being a farmer, he knew a couple of things. First of all, just through observation, he knew that probably the first things to appear would be mountain peaks. Okay. And after being a farmer for a few hundred years, he also knew that a mountain peak isn't where you build a farm. You don't see farms up on bare rock. Okay? And even if he didn't believe in geology, he knew that the dirt, the soil, where you're going to build a farm is going to be down in the valleys. Okay? So automatically he had this plan. When I come to ground, I'm going to dump off some animals, which in the Bible he does, and I'm going to have, like, say, the elephants and rhinos and stuff push that back into the water, now that it's a little bit lightened up, because he doesn't want to be up in the mountain. He knows he's going to have to sacrifice that yacht to make his new villages, so he doesn't want to be trucking back and forth up and down the mountain to get it. So he's going to take his elephants. Remember, he had two of each kind, so he had at least African and Asian elephants, maybe some other ones, white rhinos, black rhinos, whatever. He had the manpower or beast power to do it, and he could control beasts. At least we have to assume that from the Bible story. So he kept doing this. He kept pushing the boat off until it landed in a place that he liked, and he's, okay, I can do this. And it wouldn't have necessarily been where the valleys are now, because he wouldn't have known at that point where the water was going to stop. Is it going to stop, at 5,000 feet, 3,000 sea level now? But he would have probably just picked the first viable valley and said, okay, this is good. Park it here, tear it apart, we'll make our village here. We'll make our stables and our corrals and our houses right here and farm this, because it's going to be an issue pretty shortly. Because remember, this place was growing fast, and just a couple of generations after that, they were already so overpopulated. You have the Tower of Babel and whatnot. So that's pretty much where you're going to look. You're not going to look up on the mountain. There's nothing up there. It's arid. There's no way to grow anything. And you're not going to find an ark because he salvaged it. Of course he did. What else was he going to use? But what you might find is a hut or something, some wood from an ancient ruin in a fertile valley or near one, that you say, well, this could be the ark, even if it's not shaped like an ark. How would you know? The easy answer is you probably wouldn't be able to be sure that it was a piece of the ark, but you probably could be sure that it was, if it wasn't, because gopher wood is what the ark was made of, and unless you're talking about something from gopher bedrooms, we don't really actually know what gopher wood is. It is not mentioned anywhere else, anywhere in the Bible, but what we can deduce from this is it was not oak, it was not fir, it was not cypress, it was not cedar, or any of the other woods that were mentioned in the Bible. Because if it was any of those woods, they would have said, okay, it was made out of oak. Yeah, good choice, And so if you find a building and it's made out of something that was mentioned in the Bible, that's not your building. There is some contention that it might have been cedar, because gopher wood in ancient Sumerian sounds like how they would say cedar. But there's a couple of things wrong with this. First of all, cedar isn't going to be an issue because you only have 2 of each kind of moth on board, so it's not a big problem. Also, cedar is a little brash for making large structures. And of course, the biggest problem of all is that you would also have to concede at that point that that Bible word was taken from the ancient Sumerian, which would lead you back to our original premise that it came from Samaria, and that is not what we're dealing with here. That's not the premise of the show. So in essence, wrap it up, if you're going to find Noah's Ark, it's going to be in or near a fertile valley, and it's going to be made out of some kind of wood that is not mentioned in the Bible. If you find something else, you're probably barking up the wrong tree.